Photographic evidence of an alternate history by Anonymous. Blank page. I've tried to keep this book 50% image, 50% text, not written by myself, your author, but extracted from sources mentioned and edited by the author. Standard deliberately. I have checked images for fraud. Images found to be fraudulent have included final chapter. Fakes. I never got around to writing fakes. But pretty much thought of a corpse turned out to be fake. Prank playing taxidermist of some fiend. I did not seek permission. The reason for this being that the book is important was put together in order to bring people closer to the truth, which I feel is more noble than respecting copyright and fair use laws, which for the purpose of making money should be known. I make no money from this. I am penniless and do not claim any copyright or anything. Blank page. Forward. This book has been sitting unpublished on my computer for 3 years. I wrote it in 2008 at the time when I had just finished decoding the alchemical formula. In my obsession and search for true secrets and real mysteries, I found many things, by far the most important and interesting being the reality of the existence of the Philosopher's Stone. But I also collected photos of anything which does not fit into our accepted science and history. I have then spent some time analysing all the photos and checking the sources for possible fraud. If I was not sure about a photo, I excluded it. That was left for a collection of photos which fit in 4 distinct categories: modern dinosaurs, superhuman skulls, flying machines, crop circles. This was not done intentionally. I was not expecting the photos would fit into distinct categories. I did not look for photos specifically, any category in particular. I started with no interest in dinosaurs, crop circles, but the photos were there. I avoiding making any assumptions in this book or giving my personal opinion on any matter. I have only copied mysterious photos and the accompanying descriptions from where I found them. This book was originally intended to be a precursor to the book of Aquarius, which explains the original foreword. Now I am publishing after, but perhaps that was meant to be. If you have not yet read the book of Aquarius, which explains the full theory and practice on how to make the Philosopher's Stone, you can download a free copy from there. On the site, this is also a forum where you can communicate with me and other readers. This book not book of answers, book of questions. Now it is not time for answers. An answer is useless if you do not understand the question. A question is of course more important than the answer. The question and answer leads to quest to discovery, adventure, and broadening mind, with the answer following naturally, whereas the answer without a question is merely a bit of useless data with no concept being interpreted, and which therefore serves only to confuse by filling our minds with gibberish and blinds us from the truth, which in some cases intention. I must say, an answer without a question can never lead to discovery of the original question, the same way the question leads to discovery of an answer. Please read this book and ask questions. Why do you know? What do you know? Why do you think what you know? Where your knowledge comes from? Where do you tell the truth? What is truth? What not truth? What do trust? What not trust? What trust then? What history? What do you know? What truth? What no? What don't know? What no? What do I know? No. Figure 1. There are many stories, legends of dragons with descriptions fitting dinosaurs, supporting that man and dinosaur did in fact live together. Australian Aboriginal folklore abounds with such stories, including references to Plistor-like creatures, elders of the Kuku Lagani tribe of North Queensland. Australia relates stories of Yaru and Yaba, a creature which used to inhabit rainforest waterholes. The painting in Figure 1 depicts a creature with features remarkably similar to a plesiosaur. It even shows an outline to a gastrointestinal tract, indicating that these animals had been hunted and butchered. The Creation Ex Nihilo, Technical Journal, Volume 12. The dragons of legends are strangely like actual creatures that have lived in the past. They are much like the great reptiles, dinosaurs, which inhabited the earth long before man is supposed to have appeared on the earth. Knox Wilson Dragon. In light of the statement from the World Book Encyclopedia, many people don't realize that paleontology, the study of past geological ages based primarily on the study of fossil, relatively new science. In fact, the concept of dinosaurs, giant lizards, only surfaced in its present form less than 180 years ago. Prior to that, anyone found a large fossilized bone, assumed it came from an elephant, giant, dragon. There wasn't any notion of science attached to this fact. It wasn't until 1841 that the English scientist Richard Owen suggested that the group of newly discovered animals be called dinosaurs, which literally means terrible lizards. Throughout the next few decades, the first artist's depiction of dinosaurs is actually comical and compared with scientifically discerned today. How then do pottery, linens, cave paintings, written descriptions of dragons from 2,000 to 4,000 years ago depict dinosaurs better than what science could muster in the mid-1800s? Figure 2. An Indian Native American painting discovered near Lake Superior, Canada. Ooh. How nice. Look, little people. We get it. Kill it. Or shove these cactus plants up it. Ooh. God, yes, anyway. Ooh. Big piece of lizard creature. Or big dinosaur. Fish. Giant fish. Turtle. Fish. A snake, maybe. More fish. Fig 2 below. It looks like a bull. Some horns there. A scaled bull. Or is that meant to be its face? Fig 3 below. Look, it's a dinosaur. Carved into a rock. With another dinosaur. I think that's maybe a dinosaur too. Or is that a hippo? Looks a bit like a hippo. No, not a hippo. Something else that looks like a hippo. There it is. It's along with the antelope. And the monkeys. And all the rest of it. Fig 345. What real evidence exists for dinosaurs having survived into more contemporary times? What are we to make of the carving of Stegosaurus stenops, an ancient Cambodian temple in Angkor Wat? This carving is now being shown to tourists, proclaiming it is a dinosaur. Such a situation thus far has only caused a few comments online, such as location at Unexplained Earth webpage last summer, as well as others. But all this appears to be changing with more and more attention to this item. For example, there is no talk of the interactive Bible site giving the background to location. The magnificent jungle temples of Cambodia were produced by the Khmer civilization beginning as early as the 8th and extending through the 14th century AD. One of its, if not the greatest monarch and monument builders of the empire, was Jayavarman VII, crowned supreme king in 1181. Portrait statue depicting him meditating in the fashion of Buddha have been found throughout the region. An excellent example can be seen in the National Museum of Cambodia. Phom Phlem, he built the beautiful temple monastery Ta Prohm in honour of his mother, dedicated in 1186. These awesome temples were rediscovered by Portuguese adventurers and Catholic missionaries in the 16th century. Many which was restored in the 20th century. Ta Prohm, one of the most picturesque, was left in natural state and recently gained international attention, setting Lara Croft movie. It's been Ta Prohm, which abounds with carvings of all sorts of local animals. Carving stegosaurs has been discovered. How could this have happened? Did the prop crew of the Lara Croft movie pull off a prank, restore the temple, placing in onto this wall a dinosaur facade? If you will note, on the photos the panel seems to be of a lighter shade of grey. Is this should have been kept cleaner for tourists or because of the newly added panel? Perhaps it is nothing more than a rhinoceros. There is speculation that at one time or another Cambodia had Indian, Javan, Sumatran rhinos living in... That's what it looks like, a rhino living in the country. Or have Stegosaurus roamed Cambodia less than 1,000 years ago. An Angkor must... artist creative representation one on. Yeah, it looks like a rhino. See? Except no horn. Hornless rhino. Anyway, the art below the Mesopotamian cylinder seal dated 3300 BC, Mort Gatanton, Art of Ancient Mesopotamia, 1969. Animal on the right is artist's conception for a skeleton of Apatosaurus. Many striking similarities between the two depictions. Legs and feet on the Egyptian art clearly fit the sauropods better than any other type of animal. The biggest difference is the head, cartilage forming the shape of a frill or ear, may be stylized or accurate, since there is no way to know from the skeletons we have today. As for the musculature, the Egyptian artist draws with stunning realism. One has to ask where the artist got the model to draw so convincingly the trunk of a sauropod. Figs 8, 9, 10. Where's the fig? I missed one. No, 6, 7, 8. Wait, were these 6, 7, 8? No, there's no 6, 7, 8 it seems. Oh, there it is. Figs 8, 9, 10. 8, 9, 10 is terracotta statue measuring 18 cm long, shaped remarkably like a dinosaur with plates on its back. The plates are triangular and continue along the back until reaching the tail and the view from above. Figure 9. The object reveals a strange curving of the plates, as if the animal had been represented in motion on the land. The legs are large, awkward, as if carrying great weight. Not at all like those lizards, there is also a clear representation of Stegosaurus on a piece of broken pottery. Right. We've got the DNA symbol. Them wrapping their necks together. They've all got long necks. Maybe it's an ostrich. Ostrich look like that. Sort of. And look at these flying hammers. With legs. Stegosaurus on the right. Another DNA symbol. DNA things. Is that what they did? Is that how they made love? Let's wrap ourselves together and kiss, kiss, kiss. I think the cranes do that. Something does that. Flying bird, dragon, eagle thing. No, it's got the body of a deer. Look, little hoofs, little hoof feet. Actually, they do look a bit like deer or goats. Goats with giant necks. And the next one. It's a fish. Bit like a fish. Is it a fish? Salmon. What fish look like that? Some type of fish. I suppose it could be a stegosaurus. Who knows? It does look like a fish. Okay, now we've got a picture of some Aborigines or Mesopotamians or whoever. Dinosaur thing in the background there. Is it a dinosaur? I'm just thinking how the human mind sees faces and things. Maybe it's not actually a dinosaur or a drawing of a dinosaur. It's like a ship or something. What could it be? Or it might even be the landscape. Yeah. Because only this part here looks like an eye. See where the hand is? Imagine you don't see that eye. What's it look like now? Because it's not really an eye, is it? It's just a black dot. Didn't draw an eye. So there. What's that? Predator. There, look, it's Predator. See? So that looks like, this sort of resembles a tail, and that sort of resembles a head. So what is it actually? Could be like, I don't know, this is water. And plus, all of this looks so worn out, but this looks slightly less worn out. Looks like it's been touched up a bit. Anyway, next one. Oh, it's off a bigger picture, is it? There it is. Oh, okay. So we've got another creature. That one actually looks like one. A donkey. Tiger, maybe. A hyena thing. Little ship. Interesting. To the left is another beautiful mosaic. That was one of the wonders of the 2nd century world, called the Nile Mosaic of Palestrina. It depicts Nile scenes from Egypt all the way to Ethiopia. Scholars now believe this is the work of Demetrius, the topographer and artist from Alexandria who came to work in Rome. The top portion of this remarkable piece of art is generally believed to depict African animals being hunted by black-skinned warriors. These Ethiopians are pursuing what appears to be some type of dinosaur. The Greek letters above the reptile animal in question are Crocodilopepalus, which is literally translated crocodile leopard. It also contains clear depictions of known animals, including Egyptian crocodile hippos. The Nile Mosaic of Palestrina is a late Hellenistic mosaic depicting the Nile from Ethiopia to the Mediterranean. It has a width of 5.85 meters, a height of 4.31 meters, and provides the only glimpse into the Roman fascination with Egyptian exoticism in the 1st century BC. The Nile mosaic and its companion piece, the fish mosaic, were discovered in the Italian city of Palestrina, ancient Praesnete, in the early 17th century. They were thought to have been the vestiges of Sulla's sanctuary of Fortuna Primigenia. The town was owned by the Barberini family, who unceremoniously removed the mosaic from its setting and put it on exhibit in Palazzo Barberini, Rome. The mosaic was repaired on numerous occasions before being returned to Palestrina in 1953. The mosaics featured detailed depictions of Ptolemaic Greeks, black Ethiopians in hunting scenes, various animals of the Nile River, including what some have described as a dinosaur. It is the earliest Roman depiction of Nilotic scenes, in which several more were uncovered at Pelpi. A consensus of the dating of the work is slowly emerging. Paul G. Meboon suggests a date shortly before the reign of Sulla, ca 100 BC, and treats the mosaic as early evidence of spread of Egyptian cults in Italy. He believes Nilotic scenes were introduced in Rome by Demetrius the topographer, a Greek artist from Ptolemaic Egypt, active ca 165 BC. Where was I? There are explorers who believe in the possibility that some dinosaurs somehow survived extinction 60 million years ago and continue to live in isolated, largely unexplored areas of the Africa rainforest. But what if there were already better evidence that at least some dinosaurs had survived long enough to coexist with humans? What if early humans actually etched pictures of dinosaurs on rock faces? That would constitute pretty good proof, wouldn't it? Such rocks exist, known collectively as Ica stones. They're found in Ica, Peru. These rocks vary in size from that of a baseball or two, that of a basketball, are hand-etched with pictures of primitive fish, dinosaurs, Indians, using what appear to be tools of advanced technology. The Ica stones first came to the attention of the scientific community in 1968 when Dr. Javier Cabela, a local physician, received a small carved rock for his birthday from a poor native. The cover in the rock looked ancient to Dr. Cabrera, but intrigued him because it seemed to depict a primitive fish. Hearing that the doctor was interested in stone, local natives began to bring him more, which they collected from a riverbank not far from the famous Nazca lines. They soon developed into a vast collection of more than 15,000 stones, many etched with impossible scenes, whereas it might be difficult to prove that the fish represented a long extinct species, as Dr. Cabrera thought. Other scenes carved on the other stones are not so ambiguous. They clearly depict such dinosaurs, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, and human figures riding on the backs of flying pterodactyls. What's more, some of the scenes are of men hunting, killing dinosaurs, others show men watching the heavens through what looks like telescopes performing open heart surgery and cesarean section births. The collection shows humans interacting with dinosaurs and various other monsters such as horned men. How could this be? Modern man is only about 2 million years old, and dinosaurs are thought to have become extinct about 60 million years ago. There are three possibilities. Human civilization existed to join the age of dinosaurs survived to coexist with man, or the stones are a elaborate hoax. Or the people were bored. They wanted to draw something, like we draw fucking dinosaurs and demons and shit. Maybe they were bored. Maybe they were just drawing on rocks. There's another thing. A possibility. The stones themselves are composed of andesite, a very hard mineral that would make etching quite difficult with primitive tools. They are covered with a natural varnish that is created by bacteria over thousands of years. The etching is made by scraping away this dark varnish to reveal the lighter mineral beneath. Examination of stones show that the grooves of the etchings also bear traces of additional varnish, however, indicating that they are very old. These people, let's say, they didn't have jobs, they didn't have a TV to keep them brainwashed all day, they didn't have a computer, so they had time to carve into rocks. It wouldn't take that long, a couple of hours. They have years to do it, not that hard. Inca natives have been selling such stones to the tourist trade. In fact, when one man was arrested for selling them as stones of genuine artifacts, they would be the property of the government and therefore illegal to sell. He confessed to carving the image himself. Those who believe the carvings are authentic have suspected the confession was made to avoid jail. Yet natives of the area can be seen today making etchings on stone in the style of Ica stones to sell to tourists. But the distinction between the product and genuine stones is that the newly etched stones clearly scrape away all of the varnish. Unfortunately, it's impossible to date the Ica stones themselves. Radiocarbon dating can only be used on artifacts that contain organic material, which the stones do not. Rocks can only be dated by examining the strata in which they are found, but since the Ica stones were uncovered by the erosion of a riverbank or an unidentified cave, depicting on which stones you believe, the strata of their original resting place is unknown. The implications of these stones are incredible, perhaps too incredible if they are authentic. They change everything we know about the history of human life on Earth. Ah, pretty pictures. Oh look, he's stabbing the dinosaur in the head. That human grew a bit. Fish there, a dinosaur eating fish or massaging fish. Another dinosaur there. Pterodactyl, I guess, or a pigeon. Stegosaurus, so on. He's riding a... Well, you could say it's a Triceratops, but it's got like an elephant thing there. That one. Tickling his head. I like the frightened look they put on his face. Someone was sitting there watching. Instead of helping, they just had a laugh. And then this one grabs hold of him. Yeah, little dinosaur figures. Oh, what dinosaur mean? Big lizard. Big lizards. Yeah, that looks a bit like a praying cat. That looks like a cat as well. Meow, meow. Maybe they're cats. Yeah, see, look at the way that it goes up, like a cat does. In 1945, German archaeologists Waldemar discovered clay figurines buried at the foot of El Toro mountain on the outskirts of Acambra or Guanajuato, Mexico. Eventually, over 32,000 figurines artifacts were found. They were similar to artifacts identified with the pre-classical Chupicolo culture, 800 BC to 200 AD, found throughout this area. The authenticity of the find was challenged because the collection included dinosaurs. Since many archaeologists believe dinosaurs have been extinct for the past 65 million years and man's knowledge of them has been limited the past 200 years, if it is true, man could not possibly have seen and modelled them 2,500 years ago. In 1954, the Mexican government sent 4 well-known archaeologists to investigate. A different but nearby site was selected and meticulous excavation was begun. They found numerous examples of similar figurines and concluded that the find was authentic. However, 3 weeks later, the report declared the collection to be a fraud because of the fantastic representation of man and dinosaur together. In 1955, Charles Hapgood, respected professor of anthropology at the University of New Hampshire, concluded an elaborate investigation including extensive radiometric dating. Interestingly, his work was supported by Earl Stanley Gardner, former district attorney of the city of Los Angeles, California, and the creator of Perry Mason. Hapgood responded to charges that Jules Road manufactured the figurines, but excavation under the House Chief of Police, which was built 25 years before the Jules Road arrived, 43 more examples of the same type were found, including dinosaurs. 3 radiocarbon tests were performed by isotopes incorporated in New Jersey, resulting in dates of 1640 BC, 4530 BC, and 1110 BC. 18 samples were subjected to thermoluminescent testing by the University of Pennsylvania, all of which gave dates of approximately 2500 BC. These results were subsequently withdrawn when it was learned that some of the samples were from dinosaurs. In 1990, an investigation was conducted by Neil Steedy, an archaeologist whose livelihood depends on contract work from the Mexican government. He arbitrarily selected an excavation site considerably removed from the Jules Road site. Shells were found, but no figurines. He commissioned radiocarbon tests for a few samples from the Jules Road collection, which produced a range of dates 4,000 years for a human face and 1,500 years for a dinosaur. However, he concluded that the laboratory had not given true dates because he felt the samples were too soft to last more than 20 years. It was during a visit to the Scottish Highlands over 30 years ago that Robert Lyons first learned about the mysterious Loch Ness Monster. The scientist inventor him was intrigued with the possibility of applying modern technology to solve an ancient mystery. Using underwater sonar, lights and cameras, Ryan began searching for Nessie in 1970. 2 years later, he had his first sighting, recalls Ryan. For about 10 minutes, we watched a hump go out of Aquahart Bay, turn around, come back, and submerge in front of us. I couldn't hardly believe it. I had great trouble getting Super 8 sign hidden from cinema in my eye. I just kept wanting, looking. Eventually, I did some footage of what looked like blob on water, but I had a telescope with me, and what I saw resembled the back of an elephant. I could make out his crest, its mottled grey skin, and stubby size from 54 feet to foot. But on lock, we decided a hump was about last 25 feet and 4 feet out of water. In 1974, Dr. Rhines has persuaded his Academy of Applied Science colleagues, including Harold Edgerton, inventor of the strobe light, and Dr. Charles Whitecliffe, who created the high-resolution photographic film used in NASA's space exploration programs, to join him in Loch Ness for another hunt. Armed with even more sophisticated technology, they captured the celebrated flipper picture. Simultaneous sonar imaging also revealed what appeared to be 2 animal bodies and convinced the Rhines team that there was indeed unidentified life in Loch Ness. Computer-enhanced images were released to a magazine, and although the technique was employed by NASA, the pictures met with some skepticism. You don't change a picture by enhancing it. Our flipper pictures didn't change. Ryan's maintained for 30 years those pictures have stood the test of time, and the great way of scientific opinion is that they were of something we couldn't identify in Loch Ness. In 1976, Ryan had his third breakthrough, employing a time-lapse strobe system taking photographs every 35 to 40 seconds. We lucked out with those head, neck and body pictures. They were amazing. Whatever they weren't there 40 seconds before and they weren't there 40 seconds later. These things came in and bang, we just got one shot of them. Expert examination revealed images like the long-extinct plesiosaur or alamosaur, which was crazy, but the official science said they would need more than one picture before they would say that's what it was. Number 23 is this flipper. I've seen that before in a book. I think I saw that one as well. So that's like a flipper. Could just be an illusion. Like a stingray. See? Stingray tail. And there's the little stingray flippers and things. Because you see what you want to see. That's how human mind works. Like, why is there this black part here? And then look, you piece together the outline with all these specks, but you can make anything. Look, there's something here. See, look at this blob. It's like an alien head. See the eyes, nose. There you go. I can see an alien here now. My mind just pieced together, but there's a load of little dots everywhere. So you see the outline there of its neck, but this is black part. It stops there, and then there's something else over here. So, and then what's this? What's that? Look, it's an angel. It says spreading wings. Anyway, that's the first one. Flipper picture. It looks like a leaf. Well, it looks like a fin of what? A fish? It doesn't mean it's big. It's a close-up of a fish. A shark fin. Or flipper. Is that the flipper picture? Yeah, it must be the flipper picture. Flipper. It could be a flipper or anything. What fish are in Loch Ness? And then the other one. Interesting. They all look similar, well, except this flipper picture. That don't look nothing like it. But these two look pretty similar, and they look like the same sort of thing. And look, you can also look at the black part there as well. Interesting. Why is that part hidden? Both the pictures, this part is not as seeable as the rest of it. See? Strange, isn't it? It could be a fish. Let's imagine it is a fish. That's its arse tail. See, this is the fish's tail, and it's swimming that way. See? Is it a lobster? It's a lobster, I think. That's the little horn of the lobster. That's its little claw. That's its arse. This is his little leggies. And that's his tail. Is it a lobster? How would that be the lobster? I don't know. That looks less like the lobster. But that looks like a lobster. A bit like a lobster. Anyway. Eyes. Baby head. Is that a baby? Little person. A monkey holding its child. Or a rat or some shit. Oh, they're pygmy people. That's what they are. These little people. Homo floresiens in Man of Flores, nicknamed Hobbit, is a possible species in the genus Homo, remarkable for its small body and brain. The survival until relatively recent times, it was named after the Indonesian island of Flores, of which the remains were found. One largely complete subfossil skeleton, LB1, and complete jawbone from a second individual, LB2, dated 18,000 years old, were discovered in deposits in Liang Bua cave on Flores in 2003. Parts of the 7 other individuals, LB3, LB9, the most complete being LB6, all diminutive, have been recovered, as well as similarly small stone tools. Stone tools. Where was I? Stone tools. Stone tools. There. From a horizon ranging from 94,000 to 30,000 years old. The first remains were unearthed in 2003. The publication date of the original description in October 2004. The discoverers, anthropologist Peter Brown, Michael Morwood, and their colleagues have argued that a variety of features, both primitive and derived, identified the skeleton as LB1 as that of a new species of homonym H. floresiensis. They argued that it was contemporaneous with modern humans, Homo sapiens of Flores. Doubts that the discoveries constitute a new species were soon voiced by the Indonesian anthropologist Tiko Jacob, who suggested the skull of LB1 was a microcephalic modern human. A controversy developed, leading to the publication of a number of studies which supported or rejected claims for species status. In March of 2005, scientists too published details of the brain of Flores man in Science supported species status. Several researchers, including one scientist who worked on the initial study, have disputed the 2005 study supporting the conclusion that the skull is microcephalic. The original discoverers have argued against these interpretation and maintain that H. fluorescensis is a distinct species. This is supported by the most recent study that disputes the possibility of microcephaly, published by paleoneurologist Dean Falk, compared the H. fluorescensis brain to 10 microcephalic brains, revealing distinct differences that have so far gone unanswered by critics. In addition, a 2007 study of carpal bones of H. fluorescensis found similarities to those of a chimpanzee or early hominid such as Australopithecus, and were significantly different from the bones of modern humans. Studies of the bones and joints of the arms and shoulder have also suggested that H. fluorescensis was more similar to early humans and apes than modern humans. However, critics of the claim to species status continue to suggest alternative explanations. The most recent hypothesis put forward is that the skeletons found were from cretinous individuals who suffered from iodine deficiencies in the womb. This idea has been dismissed by a member of the original discovery team as based on a misinterpretation of the data. To date, the only complete craniums of LB1. Skulls from Ica, Peru, Merida, Mexico. These skulls were photographed by Rod O'Connolly on his trip around the world, during which he was collecting minerals and ancient civilizations. Some of the skulls are very distinct, as if they belong to entirely different species, remotely similar to the genus Homo. The first thing that attracts attention is the size and shape of the cranium in all the specimens. The majority of people assume that they represent an example of binding of the head, well known to be a fashion in ancient Nubia, Egypt, and other cultures. The problem with this theory is that the inside of the cranium is of the mentioned bound skull, although elongated and with back sloping, flattened forehead at the same capacity as normal human skulls. The only difference is the shape, achieved by frontal and side deformations, whereas the skulls shown here have a large cranial brain capacity than modern man, genus Homo. The cone head figure is very unusual because of the cranial shape. We have 3 specimens which exclude the possibility of random or artificial deformation. They have individual characteristics within the range of overall morphology. The enormity of the cranial vault is obvious. By interpolation, we can estimate the minimal cranial capacity at 2,200 ccm, but the value can be as high as 2,500 ccm. Modern man has a cranial capacity between 1,100 ccm and 1,700 ccm. The figure skull presents different sets of problems, yet there's only several factors out of proportion less significant than the size of an eye socket, which are about 15% larger than in modern... fuck off, will you? Modern humans. Modern populations are more significant in the enormity of the cranial vault. The estimated cranial capacity ranges between 2,600 ccm to 3,200 ccm. Both J, figure M types are bordering on biological impossibility. The only explanations I can imagine for the specimens to be naturally born is the neoteny, the ability of the species to prolong the growth period before maturing of both groups had been expanded beyond the range of modern type of human for the skull to grow to such a size. That may also mean the average lifespan of these specimens may have been substantially longer than the average for the modern human type. Any conjectures that what these specimens represent are simply deformations or pathological cases can be hardly substantiated. Anomalous types of growth or shapes appear from time to time in the modern human population. However, these occurrences are still within the range of a given species, whereas the largest modern human skull documented in the medical literature had the cranial capacity of 1980 ccm. The search for ancient wisdom. The celebrated anatomist Tiedemann, after careful inspection of the distorted skulls brought by Mr. Pentland from the ancient sepulchres of Titicaca in Peru, still maintained that their singular forms were entirely due to natural causes, without denying that some of the peculiarities of the cranial conformation frequently observed in skulls found in ancient Peruvian graves are the result of artificial deformation purposely superinduced by bandaging and mechanical pressure during infancy. Dr. Sudi maintains that diverse natural forms of skull pertain to different ancient races of Peru, and especially that one peculiar and extremely elongated form of head is a natural Peruvian characteristic. In confirmation of this, he not only refers to mummies of children of less than a year old belonging to the tribe of Ayamares, exhibiting the dolichocephalic proportions observed in adult skulls, but the very same specialities which he had noted in adult crania of the Huancas came under his observation in more than one mummified fetus, which could not have been subjected to any artificial apparatus for the purpose of modifying the cranial configuration. In proof of this, he makes Special reference to the fetus in his possession, found enclosed in the womb of a mummy discovered in 1841 in a cave at Huiche, 2 leagues from Tama in Peru. Hey, it's the Star Child, isn't it? His teeth look interesting. It's smiling. There's another one. Oh, it's to show the size difference. So it's like boom, blown up a bit. Boo. That one's gone up. Boo. It's still sort of alike, I guess. It's sort of alike. The eye sockets are a bit bigger. That one goes up, that one goes back. That one goes up, that one goes back. They're all puffed out. That one puffs up, this one puffs out, that one puffs backwards. Whee! And that's the Egyptians. So they look like that. Simple. There, you've got a skull, you've got a statue. What more do you want? Anyway. Paintings, pictures. Figure 33 is supposedly an image of the Egyptian queen Nefertiti, or possibly one of her daughters currently housed in the Egyptian Museum. Nefertiti was great royal wife, consort of the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten. She was mother-in-law and probable stepmother of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Figure 34 is one of many Egyptian images depicting a human with a elongated head. Figure 32 is the same skull as in Figure 31. The image has been cut out of the background horizontally inverted, so it can be easily compared with the other figures on the page. The most obvious difference between the shape of the skull in Figure 32 and 33 and 34 is Figure 32 has no forehead, thick brown protruding jaw. It is clear that Figs 33 and 34 are not identical to the skull in Fig 32. In our recorded history, many cultures adopted head binding techniques to force unnatural skull growth, producing an elongated head. This was especially popular among upper class families, which implies that an elongated head was symbol of status and power. It is likely that Figure 33 is an exaggeration to make Queen Nefertiti appear to be a member of a race which she was not. A race on which the ancient Egyptians had knowledge and whom they considered status above them. At the time in which these images, Figs 33 and 34, were made, it is likely the race of Fig 32 were long gone from Egypt, but the ancient Egyptians were attempting to imitate this race. That makes sense, I suppose. Conehead skull is the same type of Fig 30, but a different specimen. This skull is of a similar appearance to modern man in the face, with a large but natural extension of the cranial vault. I dare say the skull type looks at advancement of modern human form, at least in terms of potential brain capacity. 36, 37 images of ancient antediluvian sages with cone-shaped heads. At Babylon there was in these times a great resort of people of various nations who inhabited Chaldea and lived in a lawless manner like the beasts of the field. In the first year there appeared from a part of the Euphratean Sea, which borders upon Babylonia, an animal destitute of reason, by name Ons, whose whole body, according to the account of Apollodorus, was that of a fish, that under the fish's head he had another head, with feet also below, similar to those of a man, subjoined to the fish's tail. His voice too and language was articulated and human, and a representation of him is preserved even to this day. This being was accustomed to pass the day among men, but took no food at season, and he gave them an insight into Latin sciences and arts of every kind. He taught them to construct cities, to found temples, to compile laws, and to explain to them the principles of geometrical knowledge. He made them distinguish the seeds of the earth, and showed them how to collect the fruits. In short, he instructed in everything which could tend to soften manners and humanize their lives. From that time nothing material has been added by way of improvement to his instructions, and when the sun had set, this being Ons retired again into the sea, and passed the night in deep, for he was amphibious. After this there appeared other animals like Ons. A giant skull. One of a collection of skulls on display in the Gold Museum in Lima, Peru. This skull appears to be roughly twice as big as a typical Homo sapien skull, which fits the typical giant profile found in various legends and numerous times in the Bible as being roughly twice as large as average human. This skull is part of a collection of close to a dozen skulls of similar size. Another giant skull in the Gold Museum collection in Lima, Peru. This skull has a scar that is clearly surgical in nature, suggesting surgery, or perhaps more accurately, a lobotomy. Though there are no known living giants in Ecuador, there is a tribe of normal-sized people that have some among them to exhibit giant characteristics such as 6 fingers, 6 toes, double dentition. They are a tribe of particular violent South American Aborigines called Waorani. There are several excretion texts from the Middle Kingdom period of Egypt that mention the Anakim giants, who are also mentioned in the Old Testament as living in Canaan at the time of the Israelite Exodus. There is also a passage in Papyrus Anastasi I from the New Kingdom period, which refers to the same giants in the land of Canaan and gives their size. The giant Goliath, whom David slew, was an Anakim giant who joined the Philistines. A name much like that of Goliath was recently found written on Astrakhan pottery shard with writing on it from the ancient city of Gath. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature that had on every hand 6 fingers, and every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he was also born to the giant. And yet again there was war at Gath. There was a man of great stature, whose fingers and toes were 24, 6 on each hand, 6 on each foot. He was also the son of a giant. It's a collection of giant skulls. The skull at the bottom right is a modern human skull. This should give you some idea of the relative size of the skulls. An illustration of the Nuremberg Chronicle, an early printed book. This illustration depicts a man from a race of people with 6 fingers in each hand. Right, giant head. Lobotomized giant head. That don't look surgical. Actually, this part looks surgical. This part looks like it's been cut. But this part just looks like it's been smashed in. But yeah, that part looks interesting. And there's the giant heads. Is that Mr. Lobotomy or is that a different one? Same one. And that's Goliath, possibly. Mr. 6 Fingers. Mr. 6 Toes. And there's some giant people with a normal person. Is that the one with the head to compare sizes? No, that's skull, isn't it? Horn skull. Huge giants were 7 feet tall and had horns. I don't want to read that. It's a bit blurry. Plus, it's a lot of it. Can't be bothered. He had horns. No. Bend, round, big, whatever. The existence of what appears to be a horned human skull is probably one of the most controversial artifacts in existence, and certainly not one that medical science can easily explain away. The skull is said to have been discovered in France between 1920 and 1940, but its current whereabouts are unknown. Cernatium, the Museum of Supernatural History, however, claims to have analysed the skull. Their analysis demonstrated that the horns were generally part of the skull, the analysis concluding an in-depth examination X-rays leave no room for doubt the skull is not a forgery. It appears that this horned skull was not the only one of its kind. Giant skeletons of horned men over 7 feet tall are reported to have been exhumed from an ancient burial mound in USA in the 1880s. It was estimated that bodies were buried around 1200 AD, like the horned skull in the photo. The horns of the Pennsylvanian giants were reported to begin above the eye sockets. The find was made by a reputable group of antiquarians, including the Pennsylvania state historian G. Donahue, a Presbyterian church official, and 2 professors, Skinner, the American Investigation Museum, Moorhead, Phillips Academy, Andover, Massachusetts. After the discovery was made in town of, say, Bradford, Pennsylvania, the remains were sent to the American Investigating Museum, Philadelphia, where Skinner was based. The museum claimed that the remains had been stolen. They were never recovered. Is it simply coincidence that horned giants, which could easily be likened to the mythological satire of Pan, were discovered in a town called Serre? Without the remains, there is a little gone except the testimony of witnesses, legends, mythology. Horned creatures have been associated with gods across the world, from Norse mythology to esoteric philosophy. Vikings wore symbolic horns on their helmets. Legends from all over the continent tell of gods coming from out of the sky and landing in various places. This recurring theme is one of the most popular in South America, even entering into the mythological of the Incas, such as gods were not necessarily from outer space. Isn't it more likely should these legends be based on fact these were men? A gold artifact found in Colombia and exhibited worldwide is what appears to be a model of a delta-wing jet aeroplane. When not on expedition, this piece is kept in a collection at the State Bank of Bogota. This little gold aeroplane has been dated as being between 750 and 1000 years old, and possibly older. There is no way to date a gold artifact. Its age must be inferred from its style and motive, and the geological strata in which it is found. Different people not observing it have described it as a bird, butterfly, or flying fish, though it looks uncannily like an aeroplane. There even displaying what appeared to be instruments and other mechanical details beneath it and around the cockpit. As if this weren't startling enough, all kinds of flying vehicles are mentioned in prehistory. According to stories of different sources, King Solomon had an airship and Alexander the Great's army was attacked by flying shields when he invaded India. Frankly, you can take every god from outer space hypothesis, extract the real evidence presented, not the hoaxes and lies. Erlich von Daniken was convicted of fraud some years ago, and find in that evidence indications of the capability of flight in ancient times. For example, many ancient Indian epics, including those of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, contain references of airships known as vimanas. These vimanas weren't magic flying chariots, carpets, or fiery chariots of the gods. Rather, they were described as having been flying machines similar to zeppelins. And according to popular Indian legends from around 3000 BC, but based on older text, they were flown not by aliens but by human beings, ancient Indians of the Rama Empire. While we cannot simply read ancient legends as historical record, isn't it possible that at least some part of these stories are based on truth? Of course, there is also the possibility that some sophisticated science fiction writers were at work in India 5,000 years ago. Lost Cities, Ancient Mysteries of South America. There is the little gold aeroplane, or whatever it's supposed to be. There's another one, a little drawing of it, and something else. Ooh, Rocket Man. Ooh. Come on, it's just the guy taking a shit. Yeah, it's easy. Look at his posture and his little mouth. Oh, look, there's the sun up there. Oh, hail the ball. Oh, the ball asteroid going opposite direction. Metal ball. Boo, boo, boo. More ball, ball. These images from the 12th century manuscript. Annales Lorenzenses, Latin for volumes or books about historical and religious events, depicts the Saxon siege of Sigeberg Castle, France, in the year 776. The Crusaders had the medieval France completely surrounded when the flaming shield suddenly appeared in the sky. The manuscript reports this as being over a church. Assuming the French were being protected, the Saxons fled in fear from the UFOs. 16th century woodcut of spheres seen over Basel, Switzerland, August 7th, 1566. Wiki Anchor Collection, Zurich. A 16th century woodcutting depicts a scene in which dark spheres were witnessed hovering over the town of Basel, Switzerland in 1566. On August 7, 1566, at dawn, many citizens of Basel, Switzerland, frightened during several hours of black spheres, involved in a formidable aerial battle invading the sky of their city. At the time when the sun rose, one saw many large black balls, which moved at high speed in the air towards the sun, then made half-turns, banging one against the other as if they were fighting a battle out at combat. A great number of them became red and igneous. Thereafter they were consumed and died out, wrote Samuel Cockicux, of student in Crown Writing Liberal Arts, who consigned the strange events in the city's gazette. There was a UFO sighting over Hamburg, Germany, on November 4, 1697. Depicted in this artwork, the objects were described as being two glowing wheels. Note, if the round object on the far right is the moon, the UFOs were either very low or very large. Notice also the many people pointing. This was likely a famous event. This rare object, figure 55, is a bronze French jeton, a type of collectible token, not a coin, which was struck around 1656 during the reign of Louis XIV. The writing on the coin, opportunus sed est, means it has come at the right time. According to the experts who were kind enough to answer my questions, the scene represents a falling heavenly shield above a landscape. The phrase heavenly shield is mentioned in the Furadent collection about this object. The phrase heavenly shield dates from Roman antiquity and makes it possible to suppose that circular objects were seen long ago in the sky. The significance of this jeton is not obvious. However, one thing is for sure, taking account of its form and the clouds which surround it, the object represented is circular, flat, and seems to be held with a good distance from the ground. A detail which could be important is that the protuberance, which starts from its centre, does not follow the direction of its axis. When seeking in the catalogues and the collections, one notes that this jeton is not the only one to present a strange character. There are others with whose subject is curious. For example, a flame rising from the sea, or a rain of coins falling from the sky. That one struck in 1655, and which bears the words "Extraordinary Wars," perhaps commemorated a supplement of unforeseen balance to the soldiers of the king. No event of the years 1655 and 1656 seem to explain the scene represented on this token. It probably refers to a very secondary anecdote, perhaps an episode of the war which the Prince of Condé delivered to the French, during which a thing arrived at the right time. We can in any case be sure that it's about the scene. Like many of the other represented on tokens of the 17th century, is only one symbolic resurgence, either factual or imaginary, from Greco-Roman antiquity, or authors translate from French. These jetons had no real value as coins. There are French sayings inspired by these objects, such as "false as a token," or an elderly person who could be called an old coin. During the Middle Ages they came to be used for calculations and accounting by the religious bodies. Then over the 14th and 15th centuries it became fashionable for nobles and clergymen to mint their own jetons with their name and coat of arms for the use of internal accounting and salary for the servants. With the arrival of 17th century, jetons were decorated with allegorical figures and classical Latin mottos. They were used less for accounting and became a sign of status. On the jetons were representations of famous personages and celebrated alliances between large families or events of international politics. During the period of Louis XIV, the chips began to be less popular, and their use remained limited to boards of directors as a way of presenting the presence of the shareholders. The following images are a series of Renaissance shields, figs 58, 57, 59, and these other shields, the tip is a real blade to be used as a weapon during combat. Fig listed is the artwork on the jetons copying the design of the shields, or the other way round. There's the jeton with the flying thing. There's another one with a similar looking thing. Little arrows pointing down at it. It's like a little spinning top. Bouncing. Whee. Next one. The disc things. Or are they shields? They're shields, aren't they? There's a little termite. Little bug. Oh, what is that? Another one. Or is that the same thing? Yes, there you can see a little man and his dog. Not looking at it. Looking away from it. The Madonna and Child with the infant St. John on display in the Sala Ercole in Palazzo Vecchio, Florence, has been variously attributed. The museum tag says Jacopo del Salile, but the catalogue entry under number 00292620 reads that the painting is best attributed to Sebastiano Mianaldi, 1466 to 1513, member of the Cliché of Ghirlandaio, that worked in Florence at the end of 400. It is also stated that there are some remarkable resemblances with works of Lorenzo di Credi, especially in the figure of the Madonna. This is the painting that more than any other sparked discussions among ufologists, who see in the upper right scene behind the Madonna the proof of a close encounter with an unidentified flying object. In the above mentioned sky we see a character keeping a hand on his forehead and looking towards an apparition in the sky. With him there is a dog which also looks towards a strange object. In order to understand what this and other ancient paintings really portrayed, however, it is essential to learn how ancient artists really worked. Not one of those that see UFOs in paintings, says Italian artist, but Daigo Kuagli, ever tries to understand the real symbolical meaning of those strange things in the art of that period, and so they take them as realistic depictions of unidentified flying objects seen live. The object in Madeno's painting is a radiant cloud. In those times, says Kuogi, the subjects for paintings were almost exclusively of a religious nature, and in the case of the adorations like Nadi's, there often appeared in the sky an angel, or some apocryphal gospels have it a radiant cloud. Another example of this kind is in the Nativity of Lorenzo Monaco. The little man on the right of the painting that shields his eyes looking at the sky is another typical element of such paintings. However, that man does not appear to look at the radiant cloud, but at the Nativity star and three other small stars of flames to the far left. a symbol of the trifold virginity of the Madonna before, during, and after virgin birth. The sources quoted above here are skeptical. Daigo Dorgigi insists that anyone who sees a UFO in this image does not understand art. In response to this, I must comment that many artists, especially during this period, paint symbolically with a dual intention. There is a surface symbolism, which is what most people are meant to see. However, behind there is a deeper meaning. Symbolism meant only for those who are in on the secret. This was brought to public attention by the Da Vinci Code. However, Leonardo da Vinci's paintings are not the only ones with hidden meaning. A casual walk around the Louvre in Paris reveals many such paintings. Therefore, I agree that figure 61 is intended to be seen as a luminous cloud, portraying the presence of God or angels, but one may ask whether this was the only interpretation intended by the artist. Perhaps the more important question to ask concerning this painting and similar paintings is why angels and gods were thought to appear in glowing clouds as they are often portrayed. Where did this idea come from? This is a tapestry called Summer's Triumph and was created in Bruges in 1538. It now resides at the Bayerische National Museum. You can clearly see several disc-shaped objects on the top of the tapestry. Some have speculated that they are islands. If so, then these islands are floating in the sky. Fig 6970. These two tapestries were created in the 14th century. Both depict the light of Mary. Hat-shaped objects can be clearly seen in both tapestries. The one on the left, Fig 63, was created in 1330. The one on the right, Fig 64, is entitled The Magnificent. Both are located at the French Basilica Notre Dame in Beaune, Burgundy. Tapestry. Yes, what are we looking at? Floating islands. At the top left there, those things. The hats. Little shepherd hats. Flying. These people are aliens, I think. Yes, okay. The Mowing Devil. Strange news of Hertfordshire. Blurry. Farmer. Poor. Curring. Access. Devil. Crop. Night. Bean. Flame. Morning. Spread. Nearly mowed by devil. Infernal. No mortal mud was able to do like Ifu, hog the fade, Orsley now in field and Oggy, and power to setch them away. Yes, mow it. Make it. That's the crop circle maker. That's who makes them. The earliest recorded images claimed to be a crop circle is depicted in the 17th century English woodcut called the Mowing Devil. The images depict the devil with a scythe mowing, cutting a circular design in the field of oats. The pamphlet containing the image states that the farmer disgusted at the wage his mower was demanding for his work and says that he would rather have the devil himself perform the task. A more recent historical report of crop circles were republished from Nature, Volume 22, pp. 299-201, 29 July 1880 in the January 2000 issue of the Journal of Meteorology. It describes the 1880 investigation by amateur scientist John Rand Cabron. The storms about this part of Surrey have been lately local and violent, and the effects produced in some instances curious. Visiting a neighbour's farm on Wednesday evening, 21st, we found a field of standing wheat considerably knocked about, not as an entirety, but in patches forming as viewed from a distance. Circular spots. Examined more closely, these all present as much the same character, viz. a few standing stalks at the centre, some prostrate stalks with their heads arranged pretty evenly in direction, forming a circle around the centre. And outside these are circular walls of stalks which had not suffered. I set a sketch made on the spot, giving an idea of the most perfect of these patches. The soil is a sandy loam upon the green sand, and the crop is vigorous, with strong stems, and I could not trace locally any circumference accounting for the peculiar forms of the patches in the field, nor indicating whether it was wind or rain, or both combined, which has caused them. Beyond the general evidence everywhere of heavy rainfall, there were, to me, suggestive of some cyclonic wind action, that may perhaps have been noticed elsewhere by some of your readers. Fig 7222. Crop circles are organized harmonic forms that manifest around the world, the result of an energy interacting with the physical world, in this case plants. This energy is comprised of light, sound, magnetism. To date, crop circles have been reported in 29 countries and appeared mediums such as wheat, barley, canola trees, ice, rice paddies, linseed. Contrary to popular perception, crop circles are not a modern phenomenon. They are mentioned in academic texts of the late 17th century, and over 200 cases have been reported prior to 1970. Some 80 eyewitnesses, as far-flung as British Columbia and Australia, have reported crop circles forming in under 20 seconds. These witnesses describe signs of an incandescent or brightly coloured balls of light, which either precede a crop circle or are actively involved in its creation. In some cases, shafts of light have descended onto a field, swirled the crop into a geometric shape in less than 15 seconds. Such reports are often described by farmers. Only around 1980 serious attention was finally given to the phenomenon, primarily in southern England, where 90% of designs were reported. The designs appeared primarily as simple circles with rings and variations of Celtic cross. By the late 1980s, they had developed straight lines, creating pictograms not unlike the petroglyphs found at sacred sites throughout the world. After 1990, the designs developed exponentially in complexity, and today it is not unusual to come across crop glyphs mimicking computer fractals and elements, expressing fourth-dimensional processes in quantum physics. Crop circles have also increased in size, some occupying areas as large as 200 square feet. To date, there have been over 10,000 reported crop circles. If you happen to buy the media-fed misrepresentation that all crop circles were originated by two sexagesian aliens called Doug and Dave, you're not in the minority. Once in a while, governments like to control public interest as in unexplained phenomena they cannot control by debunking, a technique developed by the US government after World War II for the sad purpose of controlling mass opinion, as stated in the 1953 Robertson panel, details of which are obtained under the US Freedom of Information Act. This method is very effective because it makes use of two extraordinarily simple tools of mass control, ridicule and fear, but only if you are prepared to believe everything you are told on television and newspapers, particularly when TV programs suppress scientific or factual data with which the public can form an educated opinion on the subject. These absence of evidence is then replaced by ridiculing the subject through association with other fringe topics. So-called experts are brought in to explain away all offences, tricks of the imagination, freak weather conditions, drunk students, even sexually excited animals. According to many media reports, all crop circles up to 1992 were made by two simple elderly men called Doug and Dave. However, it has since been discovered that the Doug and Dave story appears to have originated at the British Ministry of Defence. Evidence supplied by high-ranking informant in the government institution suggested that the British government had every intent of discrediting the phenomenon by putting forward two pranksters in an effort to quell growing public interest in crop circles. The full story appears in Seekers in the Field, but when later confronted to provide evidence of their alleged creations, Doug and Dave changed their story, even reversing previous claims. They could not even explain the unusual features found in the genuine phenomenon. In the end, not even Doug and Dave knew which ones they'd made, and although they claimed to have made hoaxes since 1978, at the time the published date of the first design, unpublished evidence revealed that crop circles had been manifesting since the 1890s. The public has never heard Doug and Dave's retractions, nor been given the opportunity to compare the mess created by Doug and Dave with the mathematical elegance and anomalies of the real phenomenon. Stingray. Stingray creature, maybe. A wheel of a car. That one. A potato. That one. Looks like a whirlpool, sort of. A tornado. If you can imagine it spinning. Like that. Some type of fish. Maybe a bunch of shrimp. What is that, the Soviet symbol? Ooh, battleships. Something like battleships. A flower. A star, that's an easy one. Next one is I don't know, I've seen that picture before. Can't remember where. It's an eye, I guess. Looks a bit like an eyeball. Another shitty star. Little ankh there. Is that ankh even in the picture? That looks like a flower. A snail. Shuriken. Another eye. More pictures. Magnetic field patterns. Okay. What's the big green lump of shit in the middle? They take a dump from their spacecraft. I don't know what that big green lump if it is. Tetris. Infrasound is capable of charring the stems of crop circle plants. Perfect examples of early hoaxes. On Sunday. Okay, those shitty ones are hoaxes, and the good-looking one is genuine. So if they look like shit, they're a hoax. If they look alright, they're good. Genuine. Double expulsion cavity and node due to escaping superheated water. Superheated water. Good. Nearly done. Right, let's finish this. In genuine formations, the stems are not broken but bent. Normally about an inch off the ground and nearly the plant's first node. In special cases, the stems are bent 6 inches from the top of the seed head. Such features defeat the hoax argument, since a plank or garden roller is required to flatten the crop of the ground, resulting in clear damage to the plants. The plants appear to be subjected to a short and intense burst of heat, which softens the stem to drop just above the ground at 90 degrees, where they re-harden into their new and very permanent position, without damage. Plant biologists are baffled by this feature, and it is the single most method of identifying the real phenomenon. Research and laboratory tests suggest that infrasound below 20 Hz is capable of producing such an effect. High pressure infrasound is capable of boiling water inside the stems in 1 nanosecond, expanding the water and leaving tiny blowholes in the plant's nose. The pressure applied also causes the water to steam, and it is reported by farmers that when they stumble upon a new crop circle, they see steam rising from within the design. The process creates surface charring along the stems. With the heat and electromagnetic frequencies applied, it has been scientifically documented that soil samples taken from wind crop circles show changes to its crystalline structure and mineral composition. Expert analysis concludes that such a process requires temperatures of 1500 degrees or 1500 centigrade, and subsoil pressure typically found in strata thousands of years old. Evidence even exists for 4 non-naturally occurring short-life radioactive isotopes in the soil inside genuine crop circles. These dissipate after 3 or 4 hours, causing no adverse side effects. In fact, the soil in and around them appears to be baked, hardly the kind of anomalies created by planksters with bunch of planks. Biophysical evidence shows the plank's nodes, its knuckles are drastically extended, and also observes the distortions of seed embryos and the creation of expulsion cavities in the plants. As if they have been heated from the inside in genuine formations, there is also a reorganization of the plant's crystalline structure. In these microscope photos, the left image is a control sample wheat radically differs to the one below right, taken from a crop circle. Other evidence from the crop circle show how the floors of laid plants are swirled in mathematical proportions relative to the golden mean. The fundamental vortex used by nature to create organisms such as shells, sunflowers, galaxies, even the spatial relationship of the bones in the human hand. The floor of crop circles can have up to 5 layers of weaving, all in counterflow to each other, with every seed head intact and placed beside each other as if arranged in a museum case. Genuine crop circles are not perfectly round, but slightly elliptical. A hoax requiring a fixed central rope cannot achieve this adequately. Their edges are crisply defined from the flattened crop, as if drawn from the compass and incised with surgical precision. Hoaxes, by comparison, bear a stylistic resemblance to tufts of greasy, uncombed hair, and of course all their plants have been trampled, bruised, and crushed. Crop circles are sometimes accompanied by trilling sounds, such as captured on tape and analysed by NASA as being artificial in origin and bearing a harmonic frequency of 5.2 kHz. Mathematically, genuine crop circles encode obscure theorems based on Euclidean geometry. So far, the designs have yielded 5 new mathematical theorems. They are also invisibly encoded with sacred geometry, those harmonic ratios that govern the relationship between the orbits of planets and in our solar system. After examining the evidence presented in the book, you only have 2 alternatives. You can conclude either accept that history and science are grossly in error, all evidence presented in this book is fraudulent or misinterpreted. I advise you to ask your own questions, do your own research. When you really look, you'll see a different world to the one you've been taught to see. The end.